So here's an apple. Now I'm gonna start this video off by giving you 3 choices. Choice number 1, eat the apple from the top. Choice number 2, eat the apple from the bottom. And choice number 3, cut the apple into slices and then eat the apple. Now here's the thing, if you believe that I just gave you 3 choices, you are ready to become a citizen of Super Earth. You are ready to join the Helldivers, and the Ministry of Truth just absolutely loves people like you. Which is why they won't approve of this message. This is Escape Box. This is the Propaganda of Helldivers 2, and this is gonna be interesting, informative, whatever. Now, to understand the Propaganda of Helldivers 2, you just have to look no further than the opening cutscene of Helldivers 2. All the elements of the propaganda used by Super Earth on its citizens are on full display in this 2-minute cinematic. Honestly, it's brilliant, and as a call to action, an advertisement, a piece of military enlistment propaganda, I think there are real-world adverts I've seen from the US Army that could learn a lesson or two on how to advertise to prospective cadets from this piece of media. I really do. So let's start this off by addressing the part of the video that most people don't quite understand. A phrase that's in there because the people who made the cinematic, the Ministry of Truth, know that most people will assume the phrase means something it doesn't.
And spread managed democracy throughout the galaxy.
Managed democracy. What is a managed democracy? A managed democracy is basically a system of government where the electorate of voters are fed a narrow bandwidth of information or political/social choices through propaganda from the state-owned or state-controlled media, so that when they vote, their vote doesn't have any huge impact on government policy. Under a managed democracy, the people can be presented with a set of pre-screened or pre-approved political options, sometimes in the form of political candidates who ultimately hold the same political views that completely align with the policies of the government, but are presented to the voters as unique candidates due to how they seek to go about implementing those same policies. Basically, voters are presented with 3 options. Option 1, eat the apple from the top. Option 2, eat the apple from the bottom. And option 3, cut the apple into slices and then eat the apple. There is no option to not eat the apple. There is no option to eat something else like grapes or steak. And anyone who seeks to enlighten the voters of those other options is labeled a traitor or a terrorist sympathizer, or in the case of Helldivers, an automaton. Even considering that there may be other options besides eating the apple is a big no-no and can be grounds for re-education. In his book Media Control, Noam Chomsky argued that there are 2 kinds of democracy. One involves allowing the public to get access to all the information they need to make up their own minds on who should govern them. And the sources of information can come from the mainstream or alternative media. It can be sources that are approved by the government or sources that are hated by the government. Either way, the public gets the information or unrestricted access to the information they need, and thus decide on who they'll vote for. And some of the people they'll vote for will ultimately have a radical impact on government policy. The second kind of democracy, Noam Chomsky argued, is one where the public is prohibited or restricted and even outright banned from having access to information that the government does not approve of. Thus, when the people vote, they vote within the guidelines of an Overton window that is constructed, that is guided, and that is ultimately managed by the government, hence the name managed democracy. Yes, the elections may be democratic, the voting might be free and fair, but the choices are not. You are simply choosing what the government wants you to choose, and the only choice you have is to eat the apple. This is what the Helldivers are fighting to spread throughout the galaxy. And they do so willingly because Helldivers, like most people, don't know what a managed democracy truly is. Thanks in part to the propaganda from the Ministry of Truth, Helldivers and the citizens of Super Earth believe that a managed democracy is a normal democracy, like the first kind of democracy Noam Chomsky describes, but it's completely different. It's actually an autocracy. The choices are made for them by the power elite, and their role as brainwashed or re-educated citizens is to vote for those choices and only those choices. Now that you know this, are you still so eager to
and spread managed democracy throughout the galaxy?
Of course you are. Of course you are. But this is part of the propaganda you see in Helldivers too. There's a lot of juxtaposing of words to highlight an implicit meaning, democracy, while removing emphasis from the explicit meaning, managed democracy. And this happens throughout the cutscene.
Prosperity. Liberty. Hi there. Democracy.
Do you see it now? Do you see how the Ministry of Truth juxtaposes words like prosperity, liberty, democracy before the narrator says,
Our way of life. Oh, hello.
But it's not their way of life. The citizens of Super Earth don't live in a democracy. They live in a managed democracy. Two very different things that the propaganda in Helldivers 2 is designed to present as the same thing. And this kind of manipulation, or as the Ministry of Truth would put it, re-education through word association, doesn't stop there. In fact, it's the first thing you see at the beginning of the video. Those two words, super and earth, one following the other to create the phrase Super Earth. By the way, what's the first thing the narrator says?
Super Earth.
Yes, Super Earth. Do you know what this phrase reminds me of? Colorless green ideas sleep furiously. Sounds nice, almost makes sense, but it doesn't. It's just a nice little sentence that is grammatically well formed but semantically nonsensical. Noam Chomsky explored this concept in his book Syntactic Structures. Phrases and sentences that are enticing to the ear but are complete garbage to the mind, thus becoming an essential part of propaganda. These phrases are not meant to be thought about. They are meant to be repeated, accepted, and protected. They help the people who say them or chant them to practice a form of thinking that isn't thinking at all. Like Super Earth. What does that mean? What is super about the Earth in Helldivers? Is it no longer the third planet from the sun? Is it no longer in the Milky Way? Is it in heaven? No, but they call it Super Earth even though their own maps show that parts of the planet are no longer habitable after the last Great War. So logically speaking, the planet is in a worsened state now than it was before, and yet somehow now it's Super Earth. You see, the propaganda at work here is that the phrase Super Earth isn't just an adjective placed in front of a noun. It's more than that. It's a slogan. And every time you say Super Earth, you are practicing how not to think. Super Earth, Super Earth, Super Earth. That's not the name of a planet. No, that's what people say when they're being educated by a global government that wants them to stop thinking. Super Earth, Super Earth, Super Earth. This is brilliant propaganda from Helldivers 2. Absolutely brilliant. And by the way, Ministry of Truth, which translates to Pravda in Russian, as in Pravda, the official newspaper of the Communist Party that was founded in 1912 and made it all the way to 1991, spilling out government-approved narratives for the masses. Listen, there are layers upon layers of propaganda in Helldivers, and I think that the Ministry of Truth deserves its own video. For now though, let's move on to the form of propaganda revealed in the Helldivers cinematic that most people are familiar with. Fear. But not just fear, fear and victory. In that order. First, in all good propaganda, you start with the fear.
Sweet liberty! No! Scenes like these are happening all over the galaxy right now. You could be next. You could be next.
That's the fear part. Now, the victory.
And spread managed democracy throughout the galaxy.
Do you see it now? Do you see the victory? Fear and victory. Problem and solution. All key cornerstones in the pillar of propaganda. Going back to the book Media Control, Noam Chomsky writes, just having them watch the Super Bowl and the sitcoms may not be enough. You have to whip them up into fear of enemies. In the 1930s, H whipped them into the fear of the Jays and Gypsies. You frighten the population, terrorize them, intimidate them so that they're too afraid to travel and cower in fear. Sound familiar? 2020 and 2021? Then you have a magnificent victory over Grenada, Panama, or some other defenseless third world army. You can't go in if they can fight back. That's Much too dangerous. But if you are sure that they will be crushed, maybe they'll knock that one off and have another sigh of relief. You can't go in if they can fight back. That's much too dangerous. But if you are sure they will be crushed, sound familiar? Helldiver? No? Do Terminids have guns, rocket launchers? Can bugs call an ego airstrike, cluster bombs? Can they summon 500-kilogram bombs from the sky? Anyway, the final form of propaganda I'll discuss from the cutscene is, in my opinion, the greatest form of propaganda: speaking to the ego.
Become a hero. Become a legend.
This is biblical propaganda. If you want to know why a certain couple ate an apple, if you want to know why Icarus ignored instructions not to fly too close to the sun, if you want to know why people would travel to the outer reaches of the galaxy to fight insectoid aliens and cyborgs, this
Become a hero
is your answer. Propaganda that speaks to the egos of men. Propaganda that appeals to their desire to be heroes, to be legends, to make a difference. That kind of propaganda, in my opinion, is the most effective form there is. Everyone wants to be great. Everyone wants to do something exceptional, and the Ministry of Truth knows this. And it spreads this form of propaganda to Helldivers relentlessly, because the needs of the ego supersede the need to know the difference between managed democracy and normal democracy. The needs of the ego supersede any need to know if the term Super Earth makes any actual sense at all. The needs of the ego supersede fear and help the the re-educated citizens of Super Earth to focus on victory, even if that victory is against a bunch of bugs or over a bunch of cyborgs that would leave you alone if you weren't attacking them.
You know what will happen when you lose? Nothing. We will not enslave you. We will not decimate you. We will return to Cyberstan and rebuild what you destroyed. We will leave you alone.
But you won't believe the cyborgs. You won't believe that the bugs are just bugs, and they wouldn't be attacking us if we weren't invading their territories. Hell, you won't even believe that you're not fighting for democracy and sweet liberty. No, you won't believe that. You believe that eating the apple from the top or from the bottom, or slicing the apple before eating it, is you getting 3 choices to choose from, because you want to be a hero, because you want to become a legend, because you want to become a Helldiver.